Welcome back to She's Crafty Paperworks. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Jen, if you're new here, and today we are making 6 cards using Tim Holtz Ideology products. And we're going to change things up a little bit. Instead of doing all one type of card, we're going to do 3 that have more of a summer feel and 3 that are using his Halloween products. So if you're not quite ready to give up summer, I have you covered. And if you are all in for Halloween, I've got you covered as well. So let's go ahead and jump in. And if you're not quite sure which team I'm on, I'll give you a little snapshot of where I'm at right now. All right, let's go ahead and get going with this first card. If you've seen my other ideology card making videos, you'll know that I love using the large collage strips for my A2 card making because you get the collage look without a lot of bulk. The one thing, though, that's common is to just kind of stick them right onto the paper. But in this case, I wanted to use these particular flowers that were going to be cut off. So don't hesitate to go ahead and cut up these collage strips. Yes, they're ready-made, but that doesn't mean that you should shy away from getting what you want from them. So go ahead, cut them up. Now, if you see off to the right there, I have a pile of ephemera, a paper doll, some butterfly transparencies, and here it is all spread out. And that's because once I decide on a background and therefore a color scheme, what I like to do is take out the bags that I have where I have divided all of my products and just kind of go through and pull anything that I think will be useful. And that means I'm going to have more than I need, but at least I have my options there. And I find that it makes my process actually go by quicker. Now I'm just using some Distress crayon in Wild Honey, and this is a very forgiving medium, so I just put a little bit down and then kind of rub it around, smear it around if you will. And if you get anywhere that you don't want to, you can usually just rub it right off. But if needed, you can put a little bit of water on a tissue paper and it will come off that way as well. It's water soluble. All right, so here's this first card, and just a couple things to note here. All of the A2 cards will have this edge, and that's because I used my Spellbinders nesting die. It's not a requirement, it's just something that I like to do to give that kind of professional finish to it. Um, she is propped up on just a small amount of foam tape, and I added the cello stickers, and I decided to go with the black and white transparency versus the one with that yellow. I think that this with the black and white, I think that it was a nice kind of juxtaposition, kind of going back and forth with those golds and the gray scale. I like this card a lot, actually. Card number 2 came together much the same way as card number 1. It was the collage strips for the background and the same process that I did in regards to gathering a lot of collection pieces that were similar in style and color, and just kind of going through and seeing what fit. And what I'm doing now is just um, I always have a hard time with the sentiment pieces with ideology. I try to make something clever but interesting when using the quotes. And what I chose was "The summer sun shines, mementos of lives lived." And it's just to kind of play off of the photo that I chose. And after I used antique linen oxide to go through and just do a little bit of additional antiquing around the edges, I decided that I wanted some additional embellishment. One of my favorite ideology products is the paper flowers, and they are impossible to find. They don't make them anymore. Recollections does have a line at Michael's. They do not work as well, but you can try the technique that I'm going to use with them. Don't douse them because they will disintegrate. Um, but it does give you an option to try a technique very similar. Again, just don't get them soaking wet because they will fall apart. But I have used them as an alternative and it will work. They're just a bigger flower. They're not the dainty little flowers that I'm using here. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm using Distress spritz in picked raspberry, and I'm just using a little cup. You can use like a NyQuil cup, but I'm spritzing it inside. And what I'm going to do is put that on a swish it around and make sure everything is perfectly saturated. And then I'm going to take mica spray in Crooked Broomstick. And Crooked Broomstick is kind of like, it's not antique bronze. There's a separate mica spray in antique bronze that's much darker. This is kind of a true gold that has just a tinge of that antique color to it. I love it. It's one of my favorites. And it just gives that pink, a kind of a dirtiness to it. And what I'm going to do is let those dry. And once they are, I'm going to glue them. So here's the final product. I really love how this card came out. It's fun. I love the couple. It's happy. It says August on it. I mean, quite literally, it says August 1952, but it's just fun. And the energy just says summer. For this background, I went with worn wallpaper, and I also went with a 5x7 card base. If you're somebody who uses a lot of A2 card bases, I do recommend trying Ideology with A6 and A7 card bases. It's a lot of fun because Ideology really accommodates large sizes. As you can see, I have a lot of big elements, and this really does accommodate the large images. What I'm doing here is taking a lot of the bulk away from this baseboard, and I'm doing that is for two reasons. I'm going to be using a clock element, and I want it to be able to, for the dial to swing around, but I also want to lower this for the sake of going through the mail. Now, in my video from a couple weeks ago where I did Christmas in July, I also showed how you can do this and use it for a shaker card. So I'll link that up here if you didn't get a chance to catch that video. Here's the finished card. Just a couple things. I did use black soot and vintage photo to give a little distressing around the edges of not just the card, but also the frame and a couple of the pieces in the center, just to match the clock element. And the clock does spin. And that's also because we were able to take off a couple layers of that baseboard. I like her. And one of the things you'll note, I didn't add a sentiment. And That was on purpose because I thought this card could go a variety of directions. I think it could be a birthday card. I think it could be a thank you card. I think it could be a touching base card. I think there's a lot of different directions you could go with it. And I like having these in my stash for whenever I need a card for, just those kinds of moments that pop up and you're not quite sure what direction you want to go, and you go through and like, this is it. This is this is one of those cards. My process for doing the backgrounds for the Halloween cards was a little bit different in that I chose to do all three backgrounds at the same time. I wanted to make sure that I had exactly what I wanted to do, and then I would find my elements at the same time and then go off and make them. So, what I did, I had one in the upper right that was just using one of his pre-made backgrounds from the Distress line. And what I'm doing now is using one of his collage backgrounds from the Ideology line. This is the first time I'm using it. It's a ready-made collage background. That's what they're called. And I'm just using collage medium to first glue the back, and now I am also putting a layer of collage medium on top. For the third background, I'm going to rely on those little large collage strips because, again, I really love those for the card fronts. Okay, so here I am reducing the layer of the baseboard once again. And the reason I'm doing it for this card is that I'm going to have lots of layers behind it. So behind the window, I'm going to be putting a layer of acetate to look like the shattered window. And then I'm going to put some foam strips behind it to create a distance. Then I will put the layer of paper dowels and then the background before gluing it to the background. So another background. So I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have too much heft behind that. And so again, take advantage of the fact that these are multiple layers of paper and you can reduce the thickness of them to accommodate your needs. The one thing that I do recommend, especially with these really large ones, is to try to make sure that you keep the image when you're peeling it as flat as possible so that you don't get any bends or tears in the image because it will crack. In the video that I linked earlier, I talk about that a little bit more specifically because in some of the solid ones, especially the green ones and red ones for Christmas, will show that cracking or bending, especially those big ones. All right, here's this fourth card, and with this one, I after I had adhered the window and my different ephemera and embellishments, I went through and added some texture paste, and I used it in the black opaque. And then all I did was take two different distress oxides, one in twisted citron and another in rustic wilderness. And I used that with just my finger and went through and patted in some of the color and just to give it a little bit of distressing. And if I had wanted to make this a shaker card, and because this has the cutouts, I would just take a flat sheet of acetate and put it right behind it so I could still get that shattered look. For this fifth card, it came together rather quickly, but before I glued down my elements, I did want to do a little bit of ink blending. So I took my wilted violet as well as my carved pumpkin, and I brought out the purple and orange a little bit more. I wanted to enhance those colors. There are only a few added elements to this card. I did use coordinating purple and orange mica spray to splatter, and I added a butterfly, and this is one of the spiders, and you can color any of the metal embellishments with your alcohol inks or with alcohol markers if you have those. And then I just used the mask from last year's sticker book. All right, and here's card number 6. And I'm going to get in close here so you can see she has red eyes and green skin, and I use distress crayons to do that. And this is the transparency bats. I like these. I prefer these to the paper bats. These are the paper bats. These have more detail, but I just like the look of these. And this is a transparency moth. And with this, I did take a couple layers off of this baseboard, and these are the brad heads. They don't actually have a backing, they're flat. So I just glued them straight onto the baseboard. And I sent this to my mom, and she said, "She looks just like your great grandma." And I said, "She's green and has red eyes." And she said, "She had 12 kids." I stand by it. So take that what you will in terms of the zombiness of her. But you can see when I put her up close, there's that faint green, because I did make it purposefully light. She kind of matches that greenish gray in the background, but those red eyes definitely stand out. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful week. I hope to post again by next Saturday. I'm not sure. It's the beginning of the semester this week. I don't officially go until next week, but I do have all of my classes to set up, so I'm not quite sure if I'll be able to get a video of it, but I'm trying. I have a couple things that I have on my agenda to make to kind of say goodbye to summer, as well as I definitely have some Halloween videos in mind for the next couple months, as well as some fall, and to kind of get us in that cozy spirit. So have a wonderful week. Stay tuned. Lots more coming our way, and not just with Tim Holtz Ideology products, but of course Concord and Ninth, because if you have been following me for a while, you know, I'm a huge fan of them as well. But I also have the Spellbinders Small Die of the Month Club that I am a subscriber to, so I always do them. But one of the other things that I like to do with this channel is really emphasize old dies. And if you purchase, for example, Halloween dies that were popular last year, I will be going back and revisiting some of those popular ones that I also happen to have picked up, and try to use those in new ways, because that's one of the things that I like to do with this channel. I buy my own products, and I like to make them last. I like to reuse them. I like to use them in new ways. So stick around for that, and lots more coming up in the next few months. And then we're on to Christmas. And in the spirit of, with everything with prices rising and everything, I will be definitely using a lot of last year's products. So we'll be trying to find new ways to use old dies. So if you're also on that thrifty side, stick around. All right. Have a great week, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.